Okay, so now that we know the general principles behind how to make contour maps, let's look at the exact methodology. And one of the things I want to emphasize here is don't try to do this all at once. Don't panic. Take a step-by-step process. It's going to take you probably 20 minutes, and it'll take us a little longer because I'm going to explain it. But it'll take you probably 20 minutes to make a complete map. So the first thing to think about, big piece of advice, use a pencil and adjust the contours so that they make sense. I will tell you, this is the second time I've done this because the camera turned itself off, and hopefully it won't do that again. But when I was doing this before, I made a couple mistakes and we had to fix them. So expect that you're going to be using not only a pencil but an eraser. When I worked for the oil industry and I was making maps on where to drill for oil, everybody who was doing this actually not only had an eraser to make their maps, they had an electric eraser so that we could take large amounts of pencil marks that we had made off very easily. It was a spinning eraser. It's very nice to have. You will make mistakes and you'll have to adjust your lines. So don't worry if you have to do that. That's completely expected. And it's not even because you're making mistakes, it's because you're adding new information. So the first thing, for your first contour line, look at the data you'll be contouring and look for the highest and lowest data points. This is different from a lot of instructions that I've seen. A lot of times I have seen instructions that say look for either the highest or lowest data point and start with that to get your first contour. The problem with doing it that way is that if you start with the highest or lowest data point, you're only going to have one data point, and you're going to have very little control on what your contour line looks like. So instead, look for the highest and lowest, and then for your first contour, pick something that's about halfway in between. And so when we look at this, matter of fact, why don't you look at this, turn off the video for a second, see if you can find the highest and lowest data point, okay? Give that a try. When you've done it, come back to the video. So I'll stop for a second. Okay, hopefully you found it. The lowest data point that I can see on this map is 1001 millibars. The highest data point that I can see on this map is 1037 millibars. There are no values lower than 1,000 because they'd be 3 digits. They'd actually be very easy to see. And there are no values that are greater than 1037 millibars. So, are we recording? Yes, we are recording. Good, I think. Yes, okay. So if we pick a data point halfway in between 1037 and 1001, that's 36, that's 18 away, that's 1019, because it's 18 away from 1001, it's 18 away from 1039. Well, 1019 is not one of the values we can choose, because remember that according to our rules of meteorological contouring for air pressure maps, we have to have values that are divisible by 4. Well, it turns out 1020 is right next to 1019, and 1020 is divisible by 4. So let's look for values of 1020, because that'll be our first contour line. And again, look for those values, pause this video, and when you've found them, come back and we'll see if we can find them together. And when I see them, oh, one other thing about this contour, about this map, and this is particular to this particular kind of map, you see a value of, say, 1020. Where is the value of 1020 on this map? Is it here? Is it here? As near as I can tell by looking at where the weather stations are, the value is right in the middle of the number. So put a dot, and actually I'm going to do this in red. Put a dot in the middle of 1020. So right there, right there, right there. There's one down here. There's actually a couple there. There's one there. There's one here. one here and one here. There's one here and one here. Let's see. And we might find, I'm going to stop in just a couple seconds, but we might find some others, which is fine. We can continue to look. Okay, so I think that's it. So you might look at this and you might say, well, that's not an awful lot of lines. We know that there's something going on like that, but beyond that, what can we tell? Well, even though there aren't any other 10,020s, there are values both above and below. So let me scroll this up a little bit. Look for data points that are on either side of the value you picked, and then draw a mark between them. And so I'm going to be switching back and forth between colors here. Here is 1,017, there's 1,025. So let's put those, mark those in green. And there's 1,019 and 1,025. There's, let's see, 1,019 and 1,021 and 1,019. And if we go over here, there's 1,018 and 1,021. There's 1,021 and 1,018. There's 1,017 and 1,021. There's 1,021 and 1,018. There's 1,022 and 1,018, and 1,021 and 1,021. And I think that's about it. Oh, and there's 1,018 and 1,028 and 1,030. And so now let's find these values that are on either side of our contour line and draw in where we think the contour line would be. And since this is 1,021 and that's 1,018, 1,020 is about 2/3 of the way from 1,018. And so we would draw a point there. Same thing for this, so we would draw a point there. There's 1,020, there's some more. 1,014 and 1,022. So that's 6 away from 1,014, 2 away from 1,022. It's going to be about 3/4 of the way. 1,017, 1,025, that's 3 from there, 5 from there. Be a little closer to here. 1,019 and 1,025, it's going to be really close to 1,019. There's 1,018 and 1,022. It's going to be halfway in between, roughly. 1,018 and 1,020, a little closer to 1,021. A little closer to 1,021. 3 away from there, 1 away from there. It's going to be closer to that. 2 away from there, 1 away from that. It's going to be closer to there. And now we can see, we can actually begin to draw contour lines. This one is really just a matter of connecting the dots. It's pretty easy. By the way, notice I'm not trying to draw one long line all at once. I'm drawing little short segments to make sure that I'm curved, to make sure that I'm not drawing over something unnecessarily. There's 1,023 and 1,018. It's going to be pretty close to being in between those. 1,021 and 1,018. It's going to go there, to there, to there, like that. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? And we have 1,020. There's not much we can do with this. We've got 2 data points. We've got no data points there. We've got all values higher than that here. So all we could do is draw something like that. It might be like that. It might be like that. We don't have the data to tell. So the most reasonable thing to do would be just to draw a line kind of like that. Maybe a dot there, a couple dots there, a couple dots there, to show that we don't have any more data than that. Okay, same thing here. We've got a couple of 1020s. We have to go between 1019 and 1021. We have to go on this side of 1021 because all these values are higher than 1020. And we go here, these values are higher, so this is going to come out here, And again, we've just got some dots because we don't know what's going to happen there. Now, we've got something interesting here. We've got a few data points here and here. We've got between 1028 and 1018, between 1030 and 1018. So there have to be some points close to 1018. And so it looks like what we've got is sort of a U-shaped low pressure zone right there. Okay. Now, when we look at this, if we look at this carefully, all the values here are greater than 1020. All the values over here are less than 1020. So remember I said we had to honor the data? Here we're honoring the data. The next thing to do, what else do we have to do? Remember, we have to label our contour lines. So this is 1020, and if we really want to be careful, we write millibars, but we know they're millibars, it's not that critical. This is 1020, and again, we can just draw some dotted lines there. This is 1020 as well. Okay, what's next? Well, at this point, we can either look for contour lines higher than 1020. What would be the next one? Remember, you have to go up by 4. So that would be 1024. Or we could look at values lower than 1020. What would be lower than 1020? 1016, 4 or less. Just because we have a large area here, let's do the values above 1020. Let's look at 1024. So let's first of all look for values that are exactly 1024. So again, turn the video off, see if you can find them, turn it back on. Here's one. There's another one. There aren't many that are 1024. Let's see, there's 1024 right there. And there's 1024 right there. 1024 right there. Okay? And this is, you're just going to have to scan around until you find it. How are you going to know where to look? We'll look for values that are above and below 1024, and 1024 is likely to be in between them. Okay, so I think that's it. We might find some others, but that's it for now. The next thing to do, again, is to look for values that are on either side of 1024 and mark those in. And so we have, for instance, 1023 and 1027, 1023 and 1027, 1023 and 1030, 1023 and 1025. Let's see, these values are all higher. Then if we go over here, we have 1022, 1023, 1023, 1035, 1022, 1035, 1023, 1029, 1021, 1029, 1021, 1030. We've got 1020 and 1028, and that'll actually be our next contour line because we'll go from 1020 to 1024 to 1028. We've got 1026 and 1020. We've got 1031 and 1021. We've got 1028 and 1019 and 1021. And the same thing with these. So these are going to help us mark where our values are going to be. Okay? And again, we're going to start drawing our contour lines. So we would expect to see something between 1020, 1030 and 1023, and it's going to be closer to 1023. Something about halfway between 1025 and 1023. Something about halfway between 1025 and there's a 1023 there, there's a 1023 there, there's 1024. And so we can see, excuse me, that it looks like, excuse me, we've got a contour line that's going to do something like that. And now we can see 1023 and 1027, and actually 1023 and 1027 there as well. And it looks like this is going to have to loop down like that because these are all higher. There's 1025 and 1023. So these values are all higher than, these values are all higher than 1020. These are lower. So this would be 1024. But now we have a problem because we've got this right here as well, and we have this right here. And we have 1025 and 1023. It's going to be halfway. 1026 and 1023. 1040. Well, now it looks like we have to change this. I told you that we might have to do this. And it looks like we have something that curves around like that. And that's more in keeping with this. And it looks like there might be a zone of high pressure over here. There's 1025, 1026, 1025. These are all lower. So it looks like what might be happening. Yes, something like this. So this is a trough of low pressure, and there's, whoa, see, now I realized I made a mistake. What can I do? This is a very realistic example of where you have to look to see what's happening. So these are lower. These are lower. Ah, you know what we've got is a low pressure zone right here. We've got 1021, 1028, so we've got something there. 1035, 1023, 1022, we've got something there, and there, and there, and there, and there. And so 1024 has to go there. And yeah, we've got a nice, massive high pressure zone that's going to loop like that. There we go. That makes a lot more sense. So notice all of these values are greater than 1024, except that we have to loop around here. And that's a subparallel contour line. Okay. Now what about here? These values are higher than 1024. From here to here, there's 1025, 1023, like that, 1025. There's 1023 and 1025. And so we have a high pressure zone right there. It's a weak high pressure zone, but it is a high pressure zone. Okay, let's take a look at this. All these values are greater than 1024. All these values, oops, are lower. These values are lower than 1024. These values, excuse me, are lower than 1020. So now we have a contour line between 1020 and 1024 here. There's 1026, 1020, 1025, 1022. 1024 is over here, like that. 1023 and 1026 is going to run through there. 1023 and 1025. See, I'm erasing that. And again, probably goes over there, but we don't have the data for it. And now we can see this is, again, 1024. These values are all greater than 1024. These values are all less than 1024. Until we get here, then they're less than 1020. These values are all greater than 1024. These values are all greater than 1024. Okay? We are honoring the data. So we have a trough of low pressure here, a weak trough, but it's a trough, and it continues on up to even lower pressure here. What's next? 1028. So again, we have 1028 there. We have 1028 there. We have 1028 here. We have 1024 and 1030. We have 1027 and 1030. It's going to be close to 1027. We have 1032 and 1027. So 1028 is going to be very close to the 1027. Same thing here, 1031, 1027. Actually, like that and that. And 1028 has to be here. There's 1028. 1028 has to be underneath 1030, between 1030 and 1023. And again, I think you're going to find that the more of these you draw, the easier it's going to be, because we now have control from these contours, and that's going to help us see where the rest of the contours are going to be. There's 1031, 1031, 1024, 1025, 1030. Like that. There's 1029 and 1023, 1028 has to be there. There's 1028. And we've just completed the circle. And we have a high pressure zone right here. All these values are higher than 1028. All the values here are between 1028 and 1024. What's next after 1028? Add 4 to that, you get 1032. You almost don't need these anymore. 1032, we've got 1031, 1035, it's going to be in between there. 1034, 1031, it's going to be there. 1029, 1034, it's going to be there. 1033, 1035, it's going to have to be between 1035 and lower values, between 1033 and lower values. So let's see, 1037, 1031, it's going to be between those and closer to 1031. It's going to go right through 1032. And that is our 1032 value. The next up from that is what? 1032 plus 4, 1036. The only value that's higher than 1036 is that, and we can do something like that. We don't really know, because that's just one data point. We don't know whether that's a perfect circle or an oval like that. Okay? And this part of the map is now done. Well, this is going to look a little choppy. My camera turned off again, so I had to start it. Fortunately, it stopped in a convenient spot. But we have finished the hard part, and we just have this small part of the map to do. So at this point, we're almost done. I'm going to leave the rest to you because it's already gone on for something like an hour. But to give you some hints, this is 1020 millibars. So we're going to go down from 1020. What's that going to be? 1016. Then you're going to do 1012. And if there's enough room, 1008, 1004. And there's no value lower than, there's no contour line at 1,000, so you won't need to draw that. But how are you going to do the 1016? Well, again, you're going to look for values of 1016. There's one. There's another. And I don't think there's any others. But you've got 1012, 1018, 1012, 1018, 1011, 1017, 1015, 1018, 1012, 1018, 1010, 1018. So you're going to be able to go between those values just the same way that we did with these, and you'll be able to draw the contours. And again, you'll see that this is the new contours are going to be sub-parallel to this one. I know this is going to feel overwhelming to begin with, but the more of these you do, the easier it's going to be. For those of you who are in MET 2010, you are going to repeatedly make maps like this. And by the end of this course, I think you're probably going to find out that they're fairly easy to do, a little time consuming maybe, but easy and very straightforward to do. And you can apply the same methodology to contour maps for temperature or any other values. I'm going to put together a similar video to this for maps of topographic elevation, and the only real difference there is that there are some interesting things that happen when rivers cut through contour lines. But you won't have to worry about that. But try doing this yourself. Download a copy of this map, work on it, and then see if the contour map that you made is similar to the contour map that we made. It will not be the same. Every time I do this map, it's a little bit different. But the fundamental properties of a high pressure zone here, a low pressure zone here, a low pressure trough here, a high pressure ridge here, and a high pressure ridge here, these will be in the same place even if the exact contour lines aren't identical. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get to know how to do this. I actually like making contour maps like this. To me, they feel like puzzles that you can work on. So I hope that you get the same feeling. So good luck. And for those of you in my class, if you work on these for a while and you have some trouble, contact me and I'll see what I can do to give you a hand. Okay, good luck.